Welcome guys to a new video on Crushing the Meta. Today we have a new deck for you guys because we managed to get 3rd place in the BSF of Oberhaussen, where I personally played Dark Irregulars, and I was teaming up with Chris, who also participated in Worlds before the pandemic with Dark Irregulars, so I made this deck sort of with him. And I played with Erik from the Vanguard Insider, of course, who was piloting Nightmare. So we did wonderful. Unfortunately, Chris was really unlucky and during the entire tournament only getting 1 win. So Erik and I really grabbed it up and just went into the top 4. And yeah, we managed to hit it as a team still. So really happy for it. And we'll go into the deck profile because many people were curious on why I built the deck like it is right now. I feel it's very flexible because you can do everything without paying a counter blast, of course. But I will just go through the deck and explain everything. What I will first do is go through the deck quite quickly. Just say, okay, I will play this card with these ratios and everything like that. I will go into explanation after. So I go through the deck a second time. And then after that I will go over the cards that I was also planning or potentially looking at to play, but I didn't choose to play them for X amount of reasons. So that will be the deck profile, of course. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, because there was many people who requested it and asked me during, at the end of the tournament, wanted to see my build, wanted to see my reasoning, but like I said, it's not enough to to explain to everyone in depth why I made certain decisions. It was better to make a deck build for it. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Comment down below if you have any questions, because I will answer them if they are not answered in this video already. So let's go right into the deck profile. So get this middle away. Same with the promo. And we will head first into G-Zone, since yeah, it's important, but of course not that important as in the particular deck. So we play 2 copies of Plan, just like an extra drive check, getting something to retire for counter blast, getting soul charge, getting a potential card restrict. So really handy card to play. I only played the 2 for right now. Now for Blade Mouse, GB2 can refill your deck with triggers from your soul to your deck, so you have the potential to drive check more triggers, and if you're low on deck, then your deck will be entirely comprised of triggers. Only thing is why I play 4 is because you send a lot of short triggers back, so when you go into your next thing, you're probably also on deck out territory once again, so you need that second one. You can Guild Ray if you know your opponent has a lot of grade 1s or higher units in the hand, so you can work out with this card restrict. Of course, it doesn't stop the RPGs, but it's just for scenarios when it can come up. Also doesn't cost a counter blast, doesn't cost deck since it doesn't require darkness. So yeah, just a handy tool to play, of course. Then one formula, when everything goes wrong, you need soul, you need to draw, you need field milk. Just formula it is. Shoutout is the least important one. You can either cut it, but I just like it for the field note that also formula gives, but just in a different jacket. And one Vincent, potential soul charge late game, biggest G card you have. Generic G card that can just raw cage shield value, the second skill you will never use. This one gives you a defense trigger 5k for counter blast, but it costs counter blast, so you need to be aware of that. Saint Clem gives resist to everything, so if your field is going to be nuked or something like that by, for example, an Overlord's Crossbow, you can still protect them. 2 bottom out for you to gain soul charge if you're low on that, or if you want to go into deck territory for you to use Blade Mouse, of course. Then into the deck. So as I said, this will be fast, of course, but I will go over the deck specifically in a moment. So just shuffle those cards back into the order they were, so it's easier for me to fix it. And let's go. So for the starter, I play 1 Enigmatic Assassin. You use it for the NOK combo, of course, and everything like that. And you want to start on it, so you don't need to randomly soul charge it or have to search it out, of course. Then the main star of the show, the boy, which is all revolves around to, is NOK Death Anchor. And yeah, just a powerhouse. let you rewrite multiple times, because it's not once per turn. The only restriction is you need 3 rearguards, which enigmatic assistant pops itself out every single time during the attack step. So that's that. And then your attack extender is the Barrow Magnus. He's from the D era, very fine card. Glad I have him as SP just before the tournament. And yeah, just overall great card. Then to Hope of Them, this is your win condition, because its card is insanely powerful for your opponent to handle it. So that's why I play 2 copies of it. So just for you to see it, because you will probably sword charge it somewhere. Then I play Tragical, your main grade 2 white target. It gives you a lot of soul. If you have excess amount of cards in your hand, it can turn into soul. And yeah, the most easiest soul charge card the eye has to the arsenal since a long time ago. Unfortunately, for this card, there's a better card in the list that can make soul, but we will come up to that. Then I only played 3 Emblem Master, which many people were surprised at. There's a reasoning behind it. I will go over it later because it's quite in depth. But yeah, 3 copies of it because yeah, you still want to see him, but at 4 it's just too much. Then 3 copies of Selfish Engraver because 10k base gives you soul, and you need it for the Nightmare Magic for you to survive. The boy that saved me the entire freaking day, I'm on follower, the grade 1 version. He's better Yellow Bolt. I will go in depth over him once again. It's a far better Yellow Bolt. The only thing is he's 8k base, which can be a nuance. For Killer Tail, because it's still a very good card, gives you a lot of soul, can give you darkness without putting cards from your soul or from your deck into the soul. Also really good condition because when you go into Blade Mode, you need that soul charge. Dimension Creeper, because it's the staple of every DI deck, I think, because you like this card, when you soul charge, turns it into 2 soul, and you can filter your deck. So let's say for example you soul charge in total, or let's say for example you got to 25 soul, you actually saw more of your deck than in those 25 cards because the Dimension Creeper was there, so you probably have seen like 28, 29 cards. Then Sakiris of Pure Love. Great research because you need the consistency to hit your NLK. NLK is win condition. You want to see that NLK. You cannot see not an NLK. 1 over trigger, Dark Stage of trigger because you swing with your Vanguard multiple times. 3 critical triggers in the stride form because, or the stride crit because you don't stride that much, but you still want to have access to it. 1 central crit because you can farm protect markers, of course, but still 3 draw triggers because you need those extra draws for you to happen. So that's also why we play 4 Hysteric Shirley, because she turns into an extra soul on her own, because she goes into soul, then you may soul charge, so you also have that soul. This card also can achieve darkness without soul charging because the soul charge is a May, but in total we play 7 draws, and of course we wrap up with 4 huge triggers. That's very fast, I think. I think most people would just copy the deck list, of course, and think, okay, this is the deck list, I will just try it and everything. But if you're interested in why I play certain ratios, then I will just go over it right now, because it's not like this deck has some iterations gone through it, and yeah, of course, yeah, I just have some very reasoning behind everything. So we will start again with the grade 3s, and we'll go back to the grade 1s and 0s, and we'll go over that. Okay, give me a moment. And let's go. Okay, so now the slow version. We play 1 Enigmatic Assassin, of course. The reason why we play it as a start is so we don't need to soul charge randomly into it. We also have a card in DI that's called Free Traveler, so we can search it out and everything. You don't need that. You don't want to pay a counterblast to search it out. So you want to actually write it as a starter. Yes, that means you can potentially not get the draw, don't get the quick shoot, but that's fine. That's the power you give up, because this is too damn important for you to miss out on. Because when you go into your NLK turn, which you usually do, is you have your 5 rear guards, or your 4 rear guards, and you pop this out at the beginning of that attack step. attack with your NOK, second 3 rearguards which the medic assassin will also be part of, and then you have once again 3 rearguards because it will be popping out, and then you have your 1, 2 and the 3 automatic assassin tab, so put into so once again. Also, for people that don't understand the ruling on attack step, what attack step actually means is the step in where you choose what to attack with. So as long as there is a standing unit, you can go at the beginning of the attack step, so you choose whatever you want to attack with, and on that timing enigmatic assassin pops itself out, then you choose what to attack with, and you can still choose to attack immediately with the enigmatic assassin as long as there's something in the stand position onto your field. So that's really important. And yeah, it also came up due to a ruling during the event, but of course it was just taken care of by judges, of course, because they knew the ruling, and I thought I will just say it in the video just to be sure. Then for NOK. So NOK, you want to see him, he's your main boss unit, but you need to be wary that you don't, like, you want him into the soul, so you can rewrite into NOK, but you also want to sometimes see him from hand. And the reasoning by that is, let's say for example, you have done that multiple times, so you write NOK into NOK. You don't need a third NOK or something like this for it. So let's say for example you go to your next turn, or they survived that entire turn by any godforsaken chance, and where you had like 3 counters or something like that, you go to your next turn, your NOK is 12k base. Just write an NOK on top of it, and it's immediately like 62 or something like that. 1/3 of the version. Let's say for example you go into your strike turn. You want to achieve darkness, of course. You have a card on your hand that can achieve darkness. Just go into NOK or write into it. You get the protect marker back, or protect 2 if you have chosen for that. You get some value back, but you soul charge 1 for NOK, so your darkness is immediately achieved. So this card turns into a darkness maker. Also, some matchups such as Kagura, it's just a nice write-up, of course. So that's why we play 4 copies of it, no questions asked, and that's really it. Then I play, of course, the 2 barrel magnets. I decided to play 2. Some people were remotely trying 3, some people were trying 4, and yes, of course, it's a good extender. I won't deny that, of course. But I have, in the scenarios where I didn't have them, I was not too sad that I didn't have them. And in the scenarios where I just had them, of course. 2 is fine for me. You can search through it good enough, which of course you're a great researcher. You can put into sword and okay, you have the ammo follower to put into the song. You have enough choices to get it. Also the same reason why I play 2 copies of Hope on Them. Hope on Them is even more, I like Hope on Them having all hands more, because when you go into your NOK turn, and you sometimes just have the 20 soul before you attack anything with NOK, that happened to me. Like, this deck uses so, like, it doesn't almost use counters, the only counter it uses for NOK. And that's why I built this deck on. One game, I had 20 soul, put on Hope on Them from my hand. The entire turn was free. Like, he was on grade 2 and Hope on Them was already active on the first attack. That's really huge. And like Medic Assassin came swinging in for 25 every single time. At some point 30 because you keep rewriting into protect marks, of course. 2 is enough for me. If I would play a third copy or one of these, it will be Hope on Them in my opinion. So that's my theory on it. I really like it at 2. Also, what's really sometimes can be quite handy is with Barrel Magnus. When you go into your final turn, and it came up actually a couple of times where I had option, didn't decide to do it, is you enter Barrel Magnus, it's 30k base, and if you survive their turn and you have a Barrel Magnus hand, you can also personalize, which is quite nice because what you can do is like attack, of course, with everything on your field, attack with Enigmatic Assassin because it still is coming out, or if you didn't use it in the previous turn, it's an option. And if you go into play the mouse, it's just a killing turn, of course, once again. And because of the percent numbers, your Warriors also hit for quite good numbers. So that's an option you have, and that's why I play those cards at certain ratio. Then I play 4 copies of Tragical. This card, insanely huge deal. When you go into this as your right target, it gives you like it gives you 1 soul, because what Tragical has as a timing is when voted upon, because when the unit is placed in the same column, you can soul charge 1. So if you write your grade 3 on top of your grade 2, it is counted as 1, so you soul charge 1. So, but it's also in the same column, it's not GB restricted. So what you actually can do, for example, is go a Hysteric Shirley behind it, you soul charge 1 from Tragical, this into soul, you gain an extra soul. So you gain 2 soul of 1 card. And in some scenarios you already decided to use Hysteric Shirley when you go into your grade 3, so better have that booster set up for the 13k poke, of course. So if they are 8k base, they cannot like 15k for no pass, and you gain the soul advantage out of it. Really nice combo. Used it a lot of times, I think 4 or 5 rounds in a row, and yeah, just really insane. And also the excess amount of cards you have in your hand, those are turned into soul. I play 4 copies of it because it's my primarily right target, but if you go second, sometimes it isn't even your primary right target, which is weird, because if you go second you have 1 extra card to work with. Of course you need to guard more, but you tend to want to take most of the attacks. But what happens is if you go second, you actually want, let's say for example you go into a worse matchup, you rather want to go into Selfish Engraven. She's a 10k base, it's from DR of course, and that's why I play her 3 copies. It's not actually for the reason for the counters, only hit soldiers, nothing else. It's just a 10k base that can be useful when I need her to. Just what I most of the time did is swing on this with Protect Marker. It didn't hit, I didn't use my counter blast yet. I put it into my soul, so I have 1 extra soul of course, and it medic pops itself out. So I still gain the value of calling over, but the unit is being kept safe into my soul. So this is my primary right target. Even against Nowadays, this will be my first right target, which because you need that soul. But if you go second, you can have the option to just try this, and it can be important. Like I faced Nowadays, I did it, and they immediately like needed to ride up, do the shenanigans, but it was 40k against 10k. Even if you hit your 5k triggers, it still helps. So this ratio as right targets is fine, I think. The GB restriction or the GB part of the skill you don't really use that often because you don't go into stride that often, or you kill your opponent before stride. And yeah, that's really it about the deck. Then yeah, the card that really needs an explanation is 3 Emblem Master. Many people see it as counter +1, gain 3 soul. Like, just wow fact. He gains a little bit of power, a little bit of shield, also came up of course. But the reason I play it as 3 of, let's say for example you have your grade 0 right, your grade 1 right, and you put a killer 2 in the back. Your opponents won't give you ever counter blast for that because they're too scared of you hitting that Emblem Master. But personally, I want that CB. I want to have as much CB as possible when I go into my grade 3. So even if I have an Emblem Master, I won't just, I don't call this. Like, I don't want to commit this to give them the opportunity to damage the enemy. And that's why I don't want to ride it, so you don't need it at 4. And also when you don't play it at 4, you can be a little, just a little bit more tagged out, where you don't play every card as a 4-off, because that's also important. When you play this, you want to play as many 4-offs as possible. So Emblem Master for itself is also a fine example, because it can also search out Emblem Master itself. And if you played 4 copies, you can also search out 3 copies of him. Now you play 3 copies, so you can only search out 2 of course. So that's really important to notice of course. And you will see right to the deck profile that we don't play every card as 4 of course. And then for the best boy in this deck, it will be the Unknown Follower. I didn't see the promise in this card until later, and I'm very happy for Chris to remind me of him, because I was talking with Chris a bunch. I was talking like, oh, how do you build the AI, what is your options and everything like that, and we were talking about this guy. I said, why would I want to filter my opponent's hand? And yes, that is a weakness of this card, but it's also a power, like it's also a positive point. Because let's say for example you go first, your opponent did a mulligan, they have a perfectly set up hand, you pop this down, they need to mulligan away a good card. It can be a plus point. Also, what this card makes insane is, for people that don't know the old Yellow Bolt. Old Yellow Bolt said quest 1 and you can soul charge 1. It's this card. We will go over it later. And this one just gives you soul. This also gives you soul. It just filters your hand. This is a random soul. This is a filter to your hand. So it's actually better because this deck wants to see NLK. If you don't see NLK, you want to filter that as much as possible through it. That's why it's banned on Yellow Bolt. Also, it doesn't dress, so you can beat with it. From turn 1, it's the same soul charge because 1, 2, and 3. 1 from grade 1, 1 from grade 2, 1 from grade 3 gives you 3 soul. But it's more, if your opponent has 6 or more soul, you can soul charge 1, and if you soul charge, you can give something 5k. Really important, so you can give it even more soul. If you play against Nightmare Dolls, which is very prevalent in the meta, or Regalia, for example, you can already have that 6 soul for your opponent on grade 2. That means this card can be a soul charge 5 on itself, which is huge in this deck. Set up 2s of these. You have your grade 1 in your soul, grade 0 and grade 2. White one, okay, you have 4 cards in your soul. This gives 5, this gives 5. Okay, you're set up. 2 card combo, done. You have your soul set up. That's insane. That's really insane. Also the filter to your hand, so you can, let's say for example, Dimension Creeper into the soul, your Barrel Magnus, your Hope on them, which you will most likely not, because you will do it later in the combo or just call it down. You have so much potential in this single card, it's insane. I will instantly, like, I have decided after this one, I will instantly buy a couple, like a couple of copies of this card because I think it's hidden broken. I think this is one of the cards that is primarily will be played in Dark Irregulars for a long time. So if you guys want this card, grab it now because this is insane. I also thought not too much of it, then I started playtesting, and this card is insanity. Came up in the tournament a bunch of times, even against decks that don't want or don't build up soul that much. The soul charge from top 6, yeah, happened sometimes in those matches also, where it gave me 2 extra soul. So yeah, do what you guys want with it, of course. I really like this deck, but I had to sacrifice other copies of it, which will I go later into it, of course. Then 4 copies of Killer Tail. For her own skill to counter, you need to have 3 in the soul. I didn't had it come up in this entire tournament, where I searched out with the Emblem Master because I didn't want to pay a counter blast for anything. Yeah, of course you get it back, but it was not in the scenario where I had Killer Tail on the field and Emblem Master in my hand. That's not too bad because I always had enough soul. Every single game I didn't break on soul, didn't break on my hand, I had just a good hand. Sometimes I started with a not too great hand, but then the grade 1 Amon follower came up and just fixed it for me. Because if you use this on grade 1, this is a filter 3. If you have 2 setup, you filter 6 cards from your hand. If you have 3, you can say it for yourself. You can count for yourself. Really huge. Back to Killer Tail, of course. She can put cards from your drop zone back into the deck. So you want to play her out form if you have Dimension Creeper set up in your soul. So let's say for example you go into your grade 2 turn. So I would just set it up otherwise. Let's say for example you have your Enigmatic Assassin, you wage your Amon follower, which also works with Vanguard Circle. I can only shut up by this card. You are no, I said Dimension Creeper was in your soul. I'm stupid. Yeah, then you write Tragic Claw. Of course, what you now can do is place Killer Tail in the back row, of course. Then you soul charge, for example, 1. This goes out of the soul. Soul charge 2. I will just grab the cards from the top of my deck. I don't care. Just for reference. Then you rest Killer Tail, put this into soul charge 2. So this will be an additional 2 cards. If you have an extra Killer Tail, you can just come in and put the same Dimension Creeper into the soul. So where you have 2, 4, then 6, 8 into the soul, and then you still need to ride it for the next turn 9, 10. That's also an insane combo. This is 2 card combo, only you need a little bit more setup for that to happen. So Killer Tail can also still be a fine card for you to have, of course. And also what sometimes is, she can also put cards from the damage zone into your soul. So let's say for example you open them, your Barrel Magnus is into your soul, you can also get it out. Of course you sort of counter blast for it, but sometimes that's just fine. It didn't happen during the tournament, but it's something you can be aware of that can be an option. So 4 copies of it is also really good, and for her own skill for counter charge also. Then for the Mansion Creeper, I was thinking about not lessening this card before I found I'm on follow, because what I felt is when I got this onto my hand, it was a dead card. Then Soul Charge for me, it doesn't do anything, but with the Ammo Follower I can put it into Soul Draw into another Soul Charger. So that's where it came up very clutch. In the old deck where you didn't add Ammo Follower and everything, you just put this into the Soul Grid and okay, so you have a Darkness Achiever on to your next turn without doing anything for it. But for now, yeah, this makes you so much soul. It's insanity, because Ammo Follower already gives you an incredible amount of soul. If you put this, then it's soldiers too. So Ammo Follower will be a potentially 5-6 soul it can give on one single card. And what's also really important, what I didn't explain, this is 7k base, great ride target. Sometimes you also want to ride this because it's a 6k base and you have an Ammo Follower on the rearguard circle. I personally think it's better to have this on the Vanguard circle, this on the rearguard circle, because of the 6k base, so your opponent almost needs to give you the counter blast. But that's also to your own options. Like I explain a lot of things in this deck profile, I think, but I cannot go over everything, of course. Then 3 copies of Succubus. If I had to say where a weak point in the deck lies, is this copy, so it's just the same with Emblem Master. This is the card that I cut down to 3 because you don't want to see it at 4, and yeah, that's really it. Like you have more option to play something at 3 because you don't play Emblem Master at 4, of course. But you need it, and okay, you sometimes need to find that help on them. See that Barrel Magnus, and in the past it was quite a bit rough because you can only put it into the soul because of an okay. But now since you have the Ammo Follower, you can also use that. So you can just search into a non-soul charger, put into a soul draw into a soul charger. So just find card 30k base or 30k attacker / booster can be handy if you go for your final turn. And then for the trigger lineup, yeah, the OT is quite normal, I would say. Nothing that comes up to you have 3 Sunable Vanguards. That's it. Then 3 critical triggers from the strike pit. Don't strike that often. You still want to strike sometimes, so you need the possibility. You don't want to discard your access route great trees that you want into your soul, but you still need to crit to finish your opponent off sometimes. And that's why I played the 4th Central Crit. This was an idea from Chris, not mine. And it worked wonderfully in the tournament. Like this is one of those things. Like I played this, was like okay, 50-50. I would just play this because it's more flexible and everything like that than the APG, and you form PGs enough. But damn bro, this card came up so much in the tournament. I like it. Thank you Chris for help. 3 draw PGs because yeah, everyone plays draw PGs. Also we sometimes need the hand value to set up the field, of course. So that's really it. 4 extra draws because what usually happens is that the draw is equal to a soul charge because of how this deck works. Because the only cards that don't soul charge is Succubus, of course, and the Mansion Creeper also soul charge because you have played Ammo Follower, Killer Tail soul charge, Ammo Follower soul charge, so some great soul charge. Emblem can be a soul charge, Stretch Claw can be soul, everything except the Great Trees, which also can be worked around with Ammo Follower, can be a soul charge. So this deck is so consistent, and hitting those draws consecutively is really nice. You don't need the extra criticals for or stand triggers. Like you also can play the Stand Cat, the Nightmare, I don't know what's his name, the Cat of Nightmareland or something like that, the Count Charger one. The reason why I don't play it is you don't achieve GB for the moment you need it, so yeah, that's why I don't play it. And then for heal guards, because you don't want to be rushed out of your opponent, of course. So that's it for the main deck. Then we go for the G-Zone. Now, to Balan, I was thinking about running 4 because what sometimes happens is that you want to use him for the GP3, but what happens is you don't actually use the, like you have two scenarios where you use them for soul charge because you bricked, and then for the GB3 where you use it for the darkness skill, of course. And in the same game you don't use both of those scenarios in the same game, so you don't actually need the fourth copy. You just use one of these for one of the scenarios, and of course if you unbricked because of this card, then you just go into NLK, and if you did your NLK and you're done, then you go into this card sometimes as a finisher, which also happened in the tournament. For Blademos, since we're playing a lot of draw triggers and also OT, of course, we can run pretty quick to the deck because we also have the soldier mechanic. So that's why we play 4 copies, so we can go into it 2 times in a row. Because if we go into one, we put like, so let's say for example 4 or 5 draw triggers back, a couple of critical triggers, and then we are back to a deck size of 10. Then we check, draw, and that's for example crit, that's -7. Yeah, that's heavy, man. That's heavy. You're still back on 3 cards in deck, you still need something. That's why we play the second one, because you can just put 2 cards from your hand to this one and they go back immediately. So let's say for example you in the next turn got, so let's say for example you only draw for turn. Like it's just hypothetically, you draw for turn, you have 2 cards on hand on deck, you just use his skill because you have a kit on back to achieve darkness. Then you go back to 4 cards, and then you hope the draw triggers on the bottom of the deck. Like this is hypothetically, it happens in real life in different ways. Of course, you maybe have more deck, everything like that. But this is how you want to play around it. Also, having a multi-attack Vanguard restand, of course, is really nice because you have hope on them sometimes just in your hand chilling. This is when you know, like this is when you know your opponent's hand exactly, because if you remember your opponent's drive check and everything, and you know they have a lot of great ones, you can just kill them outright. Also, it doesn't use soul, or it doesn't use deck, doesn't use a counter blast. So let's say for example your opponent counter blasts you or counter starves you, you can still go into this on your first try because you usually G-guard already. For matchups such as Kaza or something like that, where you just bricked, of course, because otherwise you'll have Barrel Magnus. But yeah, still great card to have. Can unbrick you sometimes, also sort of like Balam, just in a different coding. So playing 1 copy of it. As I've said, didn't come up. Don't think it will come up that fast, but it's better than anything else we currently play. So that's why I play 1 copy of it. And the one efficient because we really want it for the big shield value. Also the soldiers may be nice, and that's really it. War shield value because it's the easiest war shield value we have. Then this, if we go in against Nightmare Dolls, we did our loop, we go back to Barrel Magnus and we get a defense trigger because of him. We're on 80k base. Magic numbers, of course, for us to hit against Nightmare Dolls. Saint Claim to give everything resist, so also your PGs if you're going, for example, against the Major Police. Bottom a lot. I played at 2 copies earlier. Now I play or 1 copy. I mean, that now I play at 2 because sometimes you want to force yourself to deck out because, of course, for the Blademos. Let's say, for example, you have 4 cards in deck. You have enough cards in your soul to send back. You sold or you use bottom a lot. You sold your Sue, so you're on 2 cards in deck. Then you draw for turn and have 1 card in deck, and since Blademos or does its skill on attack, you're still fine with deck size of 1. That's it for the deck profile. Hopefully you guys understood that. Now we go into the part where we go over the cards that I was like thinking about but decided not to play. For example, Yellow Bolt. I was thinking about it, like you have that one follower, of course, but still, like having a lesser Yellow Bolt, which is weird to say, but having a second Yellow Bolt is still a fun addition because it is a worse version doesn't mean you don't play it, because it can still be a card you want to, because it can still give you 3 soul if you saw it on top 1. But of course, I didn't play it as you see it because I had other choices made. In the sense that I wanted to have my Killer Tail, want to have the main creeper because they are more stable. This is for if you want to rush your opponent a little bit, it can give you soul while rushing, but of course you will not be giving counters because you will just attack your Vanguard. Also the on white is nice, but you need to see it on your right, and we have already enough right targets as it, because I'm on follower is a right target, the major creeper is a right target, and the rest second period can also be a right target. If we want to have more Emblem Master targets, we can also go into play this guy. I personally didn't really focus about Emblem Master, so I didn't go for this option. But it's still, if you play 4 Emblem Masters, you can still use this, of course. The only thing is, yeah, it can cost a little bit of soul because it pops itself out, so you go -1 on soul, and on the first boots it's +1 soul, so it doesn't really make soul immediately, but of course you can see it for yourself. This was the card I was playing before I saw the before I put in the Amon follower, because I was like, okay, I can guard and soul charge in the same time, because what you can do, this goes into the soul after the guard step, and then you can just soul blast it out or bind itself out in your main phase to soul charge 2, so it gives 2 soul and you guard for 10. This is huge against Lamberdos, but as you see, the filter was 2 incidents from the Amon follower to play it. Then if we didn't play Enigmatic Assassin as a starter, we can also play this. We don't, so it don't really see use for this yet. Maybe if we get a card that's insane, the damage, or in to have in our soul. Then we can also tend to play Redfin. I didn't really play him because if I want something out of my damage zone, I could use Killer Tail. If I want to have something from my drop zone, I could have used Killer Tail. Also, I don't really like that some play, so it's a one-time use, because if we want to have those types of effects, we have some insaner cards to play with. This one costs a counterblast. I don't want to play a counterblast to Soldier 3, that's just insane. Yeah, of course you get a draw out of it, but no, I don't want to pay a counterblast for my soul charges. Emblem Master is the only exception to that. Wodia, I find that Selfish Engraver was a better version for me that fits my playstyle more. Of course, if you're going second, the 10k base is really nice. For this to gain to be a 10k base, you need to do some work, and sometimes you don't want to do it because they can just put your records into soul like Chelsea. Not too bad for your soul, but bad for your hand because you need to populate the field once again. So that's why I didn't play it. As last, it's Amon Grade 2. As I said, I want to really play the Selfish Engraver against the Nightmare Doll matchup, but this is like, if I wouldn't play that, then this will be attacking definitely. But I did it, I just opted to go for the more pure build where I really liked it. Also, it has an errata on the second effect for the continuous scope where your opponent needs to have 6 or more in the soul instead of the 6 or less, so keep that in mind. So that was really it for the deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions left, comment down below. But before I do that, I forgot one card. That's Number of Terror. For people that don't know Number of Terror, it's a grade 3 that says when it attacks, you can put something into the soul to draw 2. And many people were like, why don't you play it? It's free draw, can give you soul, but there are multiple reasons. Like, I didn't want to play more grade 3s because if I didn't get NLK, I would just throw away all my grade 3s and go in and GSS for NLK. NLK is too damn important. Also, it doesn't really give you soul, which is weird to say because, well, I will explain it. You have your Enigmatic Assassin, and let's example with Number of Terror, you put Enigmatic Assassin into your soul to draw 2, so you can do an attack combo. But what happens is because you call out Enigmatic Assassin, put it back in, it's the same soul you worked with for the entire time since the beginning of the game. So you don't actually gain more soul, and otherwise it will be only 1 soul if you put a random rear card in the soul. So that's why I don't play it, because it doesn't really give so, and I want to have more consistency above power. And the draw power is also a major drawback, because you can go into deck out quite fast, and I rather want to have all of my triggers into my soul than in my hands at some point because of play the mouse. So that was really it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Comment down below and see you guys later. Goodbye.